Hi everyone, I'm so excited to be able to share my latest book with you, quick and easy Mediterranean recipes. And it's very serendipitous because I also presented the first edition back in 2015 at Melissa's in person. This is how I met some of you when I was talking about the Ultimate Mediterranean Diet Cookbook, while the Quick and Easy Mediterranean Recipes is actually the second version of that. So it's got great recipes from all across the Mediterranean region, different countries, different cultures, and they're authentic recipes that people actually eat in the Mediterranean. It talks a lot about the culture and a lot about the Mediterranean lifestyle that really set you up for success when you're trying to follow this healthful eating plan. And you know, since I wrote the first edition of the book, the Mediterranean diet has actually been listed as the #1 diet ever since then each year. So we've got a lot of stories to tell in here. It's also got a lot of nutritional information and statistics about the Mediterranean diet combined with these authentic recipes. Some of them are from southern Sicily, some of them are from North Africa, some of them are from the eastern Mediterranean region, from places like Turkey, there are Egypt, Morocco. There are just really a lot of unique and authentic recipes, and I hope that everyone who reads it is able to enjoy them and also the stories that I've told in the book as well. And you know, this book is organized like the Mediterranean diet pyramid. So when you go and open it, you can actually turn to this page and you can see, you know, the recipes are categorized in this format. So instead of appetizers, first course, or appetizers and entrees, something like that, you have plant-based food. And then you have fish and seafood, and then you have poultry, eggs, cheese, and yogurt, and meats and sweets, because that's the way we're supposed to be eating and living, right? With the most of the plant-based, and then a little bit of these. So there has been a lot of research that shows that adding an additional serving of fish into your diet can actually help to reduce the risk of heart disease by about 49%. So I wanted to include one of the recipes that we're going to make today is our citrus marinated salmon in a fennel yogurt cream. It tastes and looks gourmet, it's absolutely delicious, and yet it's one of the most healthful things that you can eat. And then we're going to come right back in and follow that up with our mussels in a tomato saffron broth, because mussels are a really overlooked, wonderful source of protein in the Mediterranean, and I hope that you'll cook along with me. So the first recipe that we're going to make is our citrus marinated salmon with fennel cream. And I've got 4 salmon steaks here. You can just use 4-ounce pieces if you like. If you want to go a little bigger, that's fine. Or you could do an entire slab of salmon and not have it cut at all. You're going to need a baking dish, whichever type you feel most comfortable with. And I'm going to start by just drizzling a little bit of olive oil into the bottom of the pan. You know, salmon is such a great choice for dinner, and so many people really turn to it on a busy weeknight just to make sure that they have something that's quick and nutritious that you can get on the table. And you can make extra quantities, obviously, for later. If you'd like to use a different fish or even chicken, you could also do that. So I'm just going to put my salmon steaks right down into the bottom. And then we can get started on our marinade. So I've got some freshly squeezed orange juice, and I was very lucky to get these beautiful oranges from Melissa's, because living on the East Coast, you don't always get great oranges in stock. And I love the orange with this recipe because it really helps to make the salmon sing. We're so used to using lemon always, you know, with seafood, and lemon's great too for so many reasons, but just if you want to switch it up a little bit, today in both recipes I'm doing, I'm using orange. So to start making the vinaigrette, I'm just going to pour the orange juice into this little bowl, and then I'm going to add a little bit of extra virgin olive oil. Just a couple tablespoons is enough. And then I'm going to add some salt and pepper. So I like unrefined sea salt just across the board, but today I'm doing a really fancy Sicilian sea salt from my friends at Dravita, because I think this is such a simple dish that great ingredients like this will help to elevate it even a little bit more than it is. And then you're going to want to add some freshly cracked pepper. I like Telecherry, but you can use whatever kind you like. And just make this little simple little vinaigrette. So I'm going to emulsify everything together, but you know, this is great on salad. So like fennel and citrus is a really traditional Italian salad, always served at the end of the meal. The fennel helps with digestion, and the orange helps to get your palate ready for something a little bit sweet. Or if you're not having a dessert, it is the sweet. So it's great to end the meal this way. But to have it, with salmon, we're kind of just mixing everything together. And that's what I think is really cool. So now I'm going to pour this marinade right over the salmon. And if you have the time, it's really nice to let it marinate for like an hour. So I'm just gonna cover it, and then I'm gonna put it in the fridge and let it sit for an hour while I prepare the sauce and the fennel and get this ready to bake. So our salmon's been marinating for an hour, and we can take off the aluminum foil and start prepping the rest of our ingredients. Let me know where everybody's joining us from today. When we do it live in LA, we get more of a local crowd, but since we've started doing it virtually, I remember last year there were a lot of people joining in from really great locations. So, let us know where you're joining us from and what's in season. So the next star of the ingredient is fennel. How many of you love fresh fennel and work with it? In the store, sometimes they call it anise, sweet anise. It goes by different names, but it's really fennel. We call it finocchio in Italian. And it's a very commonly used vegetable. It has three components: the bulb, which is this white part, and then the stalks, and then these are called the fronds. When I used to teach, some of my friends that had rabbits would always ask me if they could have the leftover stalks and fronds to take to their rabbits. But mostly we eat this part, we eat the bulb, and we also eat the fronds. And then the stalks you could use for, like, if you're gonna make a stock or a broth or some kind of a sauce that you wanna give like a nice anisey or a licorice flavor to. Fennel is a diuretic. It also has a lot of potassium in it, vitamin C, different vitamins and minerals. It's what is considered to be a 0-calorie food, which means it uses more calories to digest it than it actually has. So it's a great thing, and it fills you up, right? Because it's very fibrous. So use it liberally. You can use it cooked, braised, you can shave it into salads. And today we're gonna actually cook it in with our salmon. So I'm gonna start making it by just cutting down on the top of the stalks and removing this part. Now I've already cut some of the little fronds, and I've put them into this bowl. And you can use it like you would use dill or parsley. You can use it in a lot of different places. And then set these guys aside so that you can use them also in a different application. And then we're going to cut the bulb. So I have it this way, and what I'm gonna do is just go right around the core. So I'm gonna cut here, 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 and here, and then I'll make that into thin slices so that we end up with something like this. And you can just chew on them, which I often do, nibble on these as I'm cooking. And it makes me feel really healthy. And it's great, after a large meal, because it helps so much with digestion. Because in Italy and the Mediterranean, there tend to be a lot of larger meals with like many more courses. People are always talking about digestion and how to digest after a food. Well, when you eat a lot of different courses, that comes in a little bit more handy. When you're just eating one plate, it doesn't really maybe seem to be so relevant. And also in our mussel recipe, we're going to use the fennel seeds because there's a really big trend now in Italy and in a lot of places to be able to do what is called root to tip use of the vegetables. And I know our friends at Melissa's are big proponents of that, and they've got so many great things. I'm very fortunate for them giving me this fennel because it's something that we can find it usually in my area in spring and in fall, but there's not a whole lot of it. Even if I go to a great supermarket that's really known for its produce and organic things, they may have, one bulb of fennel hanging out there just waiting for me because I don't know who else buys it, or they look at me like I'm crazy when I'm asking. But I know whenever I ask people at Melissa's, I'm gonna get it. So thank you, Robert, and thank you to the whole team for providing us with this great produce. The next one is onion. So just a sweet onion. I also got these from Melissa's. Look, no horrible, really obnoxious smell. They're gonna add a little bit of sweet flavor into this. They don't make you cry when you cut them. And so they're a nice, gentle, kind of a less abrasive onion flavor to have in this recipe. Not that there's anything wrong with onions, but why not just make it a little bit delicate and help it to be a little bit more special and unique in this recipe. So right now what I'm doing is I'm just scattering the fennel around. I want to leave some on the salmon because I want to help that anise, like licoricey flavor get down in there. And then I want some of them to be bathing and just kind of soaking up this beautiful citrus olive oil blend that we have in the bottom. Now what that citrus and the olive oil is going to do, in addition to being such a great flavor, is it's going to help us to coax more nutrients out of the salmon. So like you get the antioxidant benefits of the olive oil, you get all the great fatty acids from the fish and that great source of protein, all the antioxidants in the vegetables. And then when you put it together with the olive oil, not only do they marry in flavor, but you also get more nutrients from each of those already powerful ingredients. So it's a really great way to be able to serve this. And I might add a little bit more salt and a little bit more pepper just for fun. If you have a spice mix that you love and you want to, have a different depth of flavor, you could do this. I tend to like it really light, especially in the warmer climates. And I'm just going to cover it up again. So I've got my oven preheated to about 400 degrees. You could go a little higher if you want to do 425. And I'm going to let it cook for about 15 minutes. Really what I'm looking for here is that these vegetables are nice and tender and that our salmon is cooked through. So make sure that the foil is really sealed tightly. So now we'll go into the oven. And while the salmon's baking, we can start on our sauce. So this is the fennel cream sauce. In this case of the recipe, the fennel, what we're calling a cream, is actually made from the zest of an orange, along with Greek yogurt and the cut up fronds from the fennel. So you get another layer of the fennel to hit a little bit more anise-like flavor, but it looks like dill, right? It looks really beautiful to the palate. And then we've got this orange zest. Now look at how beautiful that orange zest is. It's not that little tiny minced up one that you normally get, which I love too, in terms of flavor it works. But this one is kind of a little bit more dry, and it just gives you a different texture. It holds up to the recipes a little bit more. And how I got that was to use this guy. So I don't know how many of you have favorite gadgets in the kitchen. I tend to be a little bit more old school. I'm happy with a whisk and a chef knife and a kitchen towel. I don't ask for much more than that. But today, when we were setting up, I used this guy, and it really helped because it's a dual grater. It has two different widths here. This finer one does amazing things. So I'm going to show you. It actually has a little function here and a lever that you can set it down. But by barely pressing, I'm getting so much more than I would even out of a normal microplane. I mean, look at how that is. It smells amazing, and it gives you that wonderful cut. So I'm just going to add that right in there. And again, you'll love it. If you haven't used citrus on salmon before or on seafood, doing it this way is just going to give you a whole new appreciation. So we'll put some of our fennel fronds in. And also the colors look so pretty with the white and the orange and the green. Now our Greek yogurt. So in this, you have the health benefits of the citrus zest, right? It's going to really wake you up and help to be, have a lot of energy and things with those great essential oils. But also there are antioxidants and there are great properties in those oils. So they're good for us to eat too. And then we're adding in the Greek yogurt. And, the Greek yogurt is wonderful because it's a great source of protein. And it also has in it a little bit of inulin, which is added to it. Inulin is a substance which helps to balance out blood sugar levels. And we've also got probiotics in the yogurt. And I like to recommend Greek yogurt to people, especially who are trying to keep their blood sugar balanced, or like maybe you don't have any problem with diabetes, but you need a great snack in between meals, on the run, a quick breakfast, or like pre or post workout. Greek yogurt is wonderful because it's the only food that I'm aware of that has, really significant amounts of the 3 macronutrients. So the 3 macronutrients are protein, fat, and carbohydrate. And when we eat those, we want to eat the best quality of those that we can to help keep the blood sugar levels even. So really important for people with diabetes. So Greek yogurt is just one ingredient that gives you all of those. And then it's really flavorful, and it's going to look and taste great with our salmon. And you can also keep it on hand, if you need a dip, or you just want to have something extra to add to like a platter where you're doing some appetizers, you need something else for those great vegetables that Melissa's has. You could even serve this in the middle of some cut up fennel and just dip the fennel in this for a fun little snack. So there we have our cream, and as soon as our salmon is finished, we'll plate everything up. So our salmon's just come out of the oven. It's completely cooked through, and our fennel has started to caramelize, and you can really see all of the steam that's coming up. It's really nice because when you taste it, it's going to be succulent, and it's going to have that great anise-like flavor from the fennel. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to plate this individually if it was an individual serving. So I'm going to use about a quarter of our yogurt mixture, and I'm going to put this down right on the bottom of the plate. I'm going to make a nice little bed, nice little flat bed for the salmon, larger than the salmon is. And then I'm going to carefully, using my pot holder, just loosen up the salmon. And if I can get some of the skin off the bottom, great. If not, it's not the end of the world. And then I'm going to plate that right down on the bottom like this. And I'll come back with my spatula and just get some more fennel, because I want everyone to have a nice serving of fennel with this. And then the beautiful part is adding some of this nice fresh citrus from Melissa's right onto the top of the salmon, so that when you cut down in, you've got these beautiful orange segments, which really help. And if you have a little bit of juice, sometimes I just put some juice right on top like this. And then if you wanted to get fancy, you could put a little bit more of the yogurt right in the middle, and then just break up some of these fronds from the fennel and let them fall down right on around into the top of the plate, and that's your garnish. So there we have our citrus marinated salmon in fennel cream. So the next recipe we're going to make are mussels in tomato saffron broth. This one's a heavy hitter for a lot of people because they love to eat mussels in restaurants, but maybe aren't so familiar with making them at home or are a little bit intimidated. But there's no reason to be, because they're so easy, they're inexpensive, and they're a favorite for a lot of people. So these are our mussels. I recommend getting the mussels at a store, either at a fishmonger or at a marina, or actually having them, from a place where you can buy them loose. So sometimes even if you go to a supermarket, but they have the seafood counter and they have, a little area where you can choose the mussels that you want, or they'll choose for you. Much better than if you have to get them in a mesh bag. Because what happens, mussels, when we buy them, are alive. So we want to make sure that we're getting them nice and closed. And a lot of times they can sell less than fresh mussels in a mesh bag, and they tighten it really tight so it looks like they're all closed, and you get home and you realize that about half of your mussels are open, like this guy, which means that they're dead, and then you have to throw them away. You can't use them. So if your only choice is to buy mussels from a mesh bag, and get double than what you need for your quantity, just to make sure that you've got enough, because you're going to have to probably discard some when you get home. You always want to buy the mussels the day that you're using them, or maximum the night before if you're using them like in the morning or at lunch. Keep them on the top shelf of your refrigerator. Put some ice. Keep them in however you buy them, but then put some ice on top so they stay nice and cold. Don't soak them in water, because mussels can also be full of sand. So when you get the mussels, what you want to do to clean them, rinse them under water in a strainer, and then take a brush, whatever kind of brush that you use for the kitchen. If you have a silicone one, that's great. A nail brush that's only used for this purpose is also fine. And you just wet it, and you make sure that you scrub along the outside of the mussel, and then rinse it, and then put it in a strainer. And that way it doesn't get waterlogged, and you get all the sand off. Mussels will also have what is known as a beard on them. So when you buy them, you're going to check for any little cracked guys, any broken ones. Any cracked or broken, we throw them out. Any open ones, we throw them out. But here's a trick. Sometimes they'll be in the process of dying. So they'll be a little bit open, and then you tap them on the counter just a couple times like that. You don't have to keep doing it. And if they're alive, they will actually close up like this, and then you can throw them into your recipe. But if they're dead, they're going to stay open, and then you discard them. But they've got this little, what is called a beard, and we just pull that off. So you take it and you pull the hair down in like the opposite direction. Sometimes you need to actually use tweezers to do it. This guy's not coming out, but he's broken anyway, so we don't care. These have all been cleaned and are ready to go. So I can use them just like this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by preheating the stove. So I'm going to start on like a medium-high heat because I want to get the flavor base simmered. So if you're making this, you can use the same exact stock mixture to make bouillabaisse, an Italian zuppa di pesce, any Mediterranean fish stew. You know, every coastal town in Italy, Greece, Spain, North Africa has a different type of seafood soup that they're known with. And some of them, like the bouillabaisse, have origins in ancient Greece, because when the ancient Greeks were going around and setting up cities in the Mediterranean, this was one of the recipes that they brought with them. And so there are a lot of different variations. Make whatever you like. I'm always starting out with extra virgin olive oil. And we're just gonna let this get nice and heated up. Then what we're going to add in is some chopped garlic. Add as much as you like. I've got 2 cloves here, and I also got the garlic from Melissa's because it's hard to find really good garlic now unless you're growing it yourself. A lot of times when you get it, it will have the little, the green center that sometimes we don't like. It's a little bit too obnoxious. The one from Melissa's does not have that, so I like using it. Another secret ingredient in here is saffron. So a little bit of saffron goes a long way. This has been prized since ancient times. You know, they said that Zeus slept on a bed of saffron, and there are saffron gods in the ruins in Santorini that you can see painted on reliefs. Saffron was also a natural medicine, as were many spices, and it was often used to treat a lot of different illnesses, dealing with moods and spasms and any kind of epilepsy in ancient times. They actually used saffron to help heal that. We're using in our recipe because it's going to give a nice, really rich depth to our sauce. And then I've got fennel seeds. So in our salmon recipe, we used the fennel bulb. We used also the fronds in that recipe. And in this one, we're using the little seeds. These are great to boil up and let steep for 10 minutes to make a tisane. Fennel seeds have what are called phytoestrogens in them. So they're really good for helping women go through menopause. I'm going to go ahead and add the garlic now. My oil's hot. And I know that the oil's hot and ready to work with because it starts to release its beautiful aroma. With cooking, you know, so much is released and related to scent. So when you start to notice something smelling, probably time to add your next ingredient. When you start to notice the sound change, might be time to lower the temperature, raise the temperature. I'm going to add my fennel seeds, get these nice and toasted. If you don't like licorice flavor, you don't like anise flavor, you don't have to add the fennel seeds. You can leave them out. You can add something different. And now I'm going to add my saffron. And this is just so nice. Crush it up a little bit in your hands, and you'll really love the flavor because, you know, saffron has almost a little bit of an iodine kick to it, and that marries so well with seafood. Now what I'm doing is I'm just toasting these in the olive oil right in the bottom of my pan. It's kind of a different technique, especially for Mediterranean cooking. We don't normally toast a lot of spices like is done in India. It really helps to coax out the nutrients from that fennel with the olive oil. Then I'm going to add some orange zest for flavor and also for the look. So the other big takeaway from today, right, is citrus zest in all of these seafood recipes. I'm going to give that a quick spin around. And then I've got 3 kinds of herbs that I also got from Melissa's. So I've got fresh thyme, fresh parsley, and fresh oregano. Very traditional in Mediterranean cooking, all 3 of them. Obviously, parsley in Italian, we say it's like children, it gets in everything. Or also, if someone does a lot, we say, hey, you're everywhere, you're like parsley. And a lot of vitamin C, great detoxifier for the body. And then we have the fennel, thyme. So let me pull this out so you can see the fresh thyme stalks. You could use dried thyme if you want, but I really like the fresh thyme because it's great for respiratory issues, really helps anytime you have a cough or any kind of like a flu, that way to make a tea out of thyme or just eat more this way. And then we have the oregano. And the oregano has so many wonderful properties. First, I'm going to add a ½ pound of tomatoes. So these tomatoes have been diced, and they're the Roma tomatoes that I also got from Melissa's. Normally I would peel the tomatoes, and it's an extra step, but it makes for a little bit of a better sauce. I'm turning my heat up to high at this point because I really want to start caramelizing the tomatoes. If you get the aromas from Melissa's, you don't even need to peel them. There aren't very many seeds. The skin is nice and thin, so you can go ahead and add them in. Now we're getting all the lycopene and the nutrients from the tomatoes, which are great antioxidants, but we're also getting the great flavor. And by putting them in the bottom of the pan like this, you can see how they're starting to caramelize. So all of that great caramelization is going to give a natural sweetness to the sauce and make us not have to add any additional sweetness. So I'm going to give this a little bit of sea salt and also some freshly cracked pepper. And I left off talking about the oregano. So I wanted to show you the oregano, so important in Mediterranean cooking. You know, oregano doesn't get as much play nowadays as a lot of the other herbs do, but it really should. In Greek, our modern English word for oregano comes from the Greek term orisgano, which means mountain joy. And it really is the joy of the mountain because not only does it have such a great flavor, but so many health, nutrient, healing properties. So oregano is antiseptic, antibiotic, antimicrobial, antiviral. It has a lot of great compounds in it that really help us to heal. So by adding them into this, we're doing great things for our body. And you know, a lot of people are even taking oregano oil as a supplement to help them just as a natural defense in their body. So the more fresh oregano you can get into your recipes, the more flavor that you're going to have. And it gives it that truly Greek, Southern Italian kind of flavor to your meal. So I'm just going to continue stirring. It smells like a pizzeria in here right now, a really good one. It just has this nice aroma of the sweetness of the tomatoes mixing with the herbs and the fennel and the garlic, and that added layer of orange that when you eat it in this mussel recipe, you're not going to know what it is, but it really helps to make these mussels sing. So what I'm going to do now, while the tomatoes are still cooking, is I'm going to add in, look at this great amount of herbs I've got. You can add as much as you like, but I think that's one of the things that really distinguishes Mediterranean cooking and the Mediterranean diet for people that are trying to do it in the US, because we're using such little quantities. But you know, Melissa sent me big bags, which is exactly perfect, like Mediterranean style, so I can use a lot. And this is going to help me to get those nutrients in addition to the flavor. So I'll add those right in. You know, when we're watching our weight, when we're trying to be healthy, when we're following a lifestyle plan or a diet plan, there's so much talk about cutting out. You got to cut this out, you got to eat less of this, eat a little less of that, don't have these in your diet, eliminate X, Y, and Z. But in the Mediterranean diet and Mediterranean lifestyle, it's all about what can you add in. You can add in lots of spices. You can add in lots of fresh herbs. You can add in lots of vegetables, especially the cruciferous ones and the ones that are have a low glycemic index. You can add in seafood. And these are add-ins that are really going to make your life better. So I've got, this guy is like screaming hot. I'm going to turn it down to 7 or like medium high. And then I'm going to show you these tomatoes. Look at how beautiful those look. I mean, they've broken down. You can hear when I took it off the heat, it stopped to, you know, make the noise. And they're just absolutely caramelized and tender. This would be great on pasta or rice or quinoa or spaghetti squash when they're in season. Smells heavenly. And that's my great flavor base for this. So I'm turning my heat back up to high, and I want these to get really hot on purpose because I want to make my broth or my stock or my flavor base for the mussels. So here's a trick. How many of you make mussels at home? Let me know if you've got any favorite, you know, tips or tricks or ways that you like to serve the mussels. But this would be a great sauce, as I mentioned already, on its own. We're going to add stock to it, which would make it be a great tomato soup on its own. The only thing that would need to happen would be that after the stock and the tomatoes cook, you blend it, and you've got your own great, wonderful homemade tomato soup. What we're going to do is get everything up to a really high boil, because what we want in this is for these to come together, rapid boil. We throw in the mussels, we stir it really quickly, slam the lid down, and let it do its thing for just like 3 to 4 minutes. But what you need is that seal with the lid, with the different flavors coming together here in this, and they're just gonna open up in no time. And you'll be amazed at how quick this is. So one last stir, because I wanna get all that good stuff. Whenever you're making tomato sauce, all the good stuff hangs around the side of the pan. Make sure you're scraping that down and getting that into your pan. I'm gonna add my stock. This is 2 cups of seafood stock. So in the book, I talk a lot about stocks, and I talk a lot about flavor bases and things that you can do to save time, save money, save calories, and save your health, and save flavor. One of them is to make your own stocks. It takes no time, it's no active time. You just throw everything into a big stock pot and let it cook. Seafood stock you can do in 45 minutes to an hour. And here's the best way that you can do it at home. Keep all of your little remnants from your vegetables that you chop during the week, your skins from your onions, your tops of your carrots, your bottoms and tops of your celery, any old herbs you have, any mushroom stems, any little tomato piece that is less than perfect. Keep it in a sealed bag, double sealed, in your refrigerator, in your vegetable crisper. And once a week when you're watching a movie, working out, doing something that you're doing from home, put those in a big kettle of water and keep them on your stove, bring it to a boil. To make the seafood stock, what I actually did was add shrimp shells. Shrimp shells give great rich flavor, and you only need a handful in with those other ingredients that I already mentioned. I add a bay leaf, I bring it up to high, to a boil, and then I turn it down and I let it simmer for 30 to 45 minutes and then strain it. And you've got this wonderful seafood broth that you can put into yogurt containers or individual containers and freeze them for whenever you need seafood stock. And it doesn't have a terribly strong seafood flavor. So what you can do then is you can add the salt to the level that you like, or maybe none at all. And I really recommend doing this. If you wanted to not do a seafood one, just do the vegetable one. But I would even use plain water before I would advise somebody to go to the store and buy a commercial stock. And the reason for that is even the low sodium of those varieties, still that's relatively speaking. Usually the low sodium ones still have more sodium than you need in a full day's recommended allowance. So by doing it at home, you don't have any of that sodium, you don't have any of the added chemicals, flavors, and you just get to control what you're eating. So I'm gonna show you how beautiful this broth looks right now before our mussels are even done. Isn't that absolutely gorgeous? And right now, I'll just bring it back to a high heat. Maybe what I can do is use a ladle. And I think that will help to really get you in here, because the steam is fogging up our airwaves. So you can see the tomatoes in the broth and what they look like. Nice high heat, turn it right up to high. Add our mussels right in. Now say you wanted to make this into more of like a bouillabaisse. You would have your fish, white fish cut up into 1-inch pieces. You could have your shrimp, your clams, any other seafood that you like. Scallops could go right in at the same time and join the party. But we're just doing mussels, so I want to make sure they're all down in the liquid. It's on high heat. I'm covering it, and I'm just going to let it do its work. So in Italian, we have a saying that cozze or mussels sono come le persone. They're like people. Se non sono buone, non aprono. If they're not good, they don't open. So, or if they don't open, they're not good. And so we want to make sure that all of our little mussels open up in this time. So no peeking, no going through and looking, no checking and stirring every minute, just 3 to 4 minutes of straight through cooking until they open. And you want to make sure that all of the mussels open that you serve. If mussels do not open, then they're not ready to serve. You either have to let them cook for a minute and try to get them to open, or just discard them, because that means they're no good. And I know people are surprised to learn that, because a lot of times we go to restaurants and they want to convince you that these unopened mussels are part of your meal. They're not. They're fillers for the plate. They're taking up space, but they are not what you want to eat. So that's all you need to do. And in just a few minutes, we'll plate these up and we'll be ready to eat. So honestly, in this stove, only 2 minutes have passed, and I can already see through the lid that the mussels have opened. When I open the lid, and this is really important when you're at home, always open it with the steam away from you, because if I were to have my hand this way, I would get burnt. But I'm opening it this way so that all of the steam goes out. So that's just a little trick for home cooks. let the steam out, set this down, and then I'm going to show you what these beautiful mussels look like when they open up. They're nice and wide open, and the broth has all of that wonderful flavor from the sea salt and the herbs and the fennel and the garlic that we've put in here, the saffron. You can just smell it right coming through the recipe. And this is great to eat on its own. It can be an appetizer. It can be a main course that's preceded by something else. Look at how beautiful those look. Nice and open, and you can see all the beautiful colors when you bring this to the table. I would even hit it with a little bit more fresh orange zest, because that way it's really gonna smell wonderful when it first hits the table. Mussels are full of protein. They're an often overlooked protein source. They're obviously low in anything that's bad for us, but they've got a lot of zinc in them, a lot of B12, vitamin A, so they're good for our skin, they're good for our eyes, they're good for our immunity, and they're delicious. Enjoy. Thank you all so much for cooking with me today. I'm going to wish you with pleasure and health, as they do in Egypt. It's like bon appetit. And if you would like any more information about the books or my products, you can visit amyriolo.com.